A very good morning to everybody joining us live on Cisco as well as on YouTube today. From Sastra, I wish everybody a very warm welcome. We are starting the third edition of our Startup Masterclass today with Mr. Ankit Machar. Before we start, I would like to just give a small introduction of Mr. Ankit. He is the head of the ecosystem development at Wadhwani Foundation. Uh, he heads the entrepreneurship ecosystem development for Wadhwani Foundation and works closely with top institutes, universities, incubators, accelerators, investors, mentors, and ecosystem stakeholders across India and Southeast Asia. Ankit has over 10 years of experience in creating and supporting technology entrepreneurship ecosystem, fostering innovation and startup culture, and its related activities. Ankit is on board with several organizations as a mentor advisor. He's a mentor at Startup India Hub and also a mentor of change at Atal Tinkering Lab. In his previous role, Ankit worked as the manager of ecosystem development at iCreate, a government of Gujarat's technological business incubator, and was the leading strategic alliances, partnerships, reach out programs, scouting startups, branding, and promotion of iCreate. With this, before I waste any more time, I would like to hand it over to Ankit to really give us the uh, gist of it. Ankit, the floor is all yours.
Hey, great. Thanks, Pradyumna. Thanks for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Uh, First of all, thank you to the university, Dr. Konak Rai, and Pradyumna and the team here, Sastra team, for inviting me. It's a pleasure being part of this forum and speak to the participants. Uh, Share whatever learning that I have acquired working with so many startups over the last 7, 8 years, and more importantly, talking about a very important uh, milestone in an entrepreneur's journey, which is discovering a customer. So I have a presentation that I want to run, and would around 40-45 minutes we would like to cover that presentation. Uh, Post that, if you have any questions, keep them ready. Would suggest to have a notepad, or if you're on the laptop or mobile, have your WhatsApp open, not for chatting, but for uh, putting out the questions or doubts or suggestions that you might have after I finish my presentation. So I'll just share my screen and get started. Pradyumna, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Okay, so very important topic that we are going to start, which is called customer discovery. You already know about me, so I'll quickly give a quick introduction on the organization that I come from, which is Wadhwani Foundation. Wadhwani Foundation is a US-based not-for-profit, a philanthropic initiative by Dr. Ramesh Wadhwani, started in the year 2000, and and now today we are present in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The mission is very specific. We want to accelerate the economic development in emerging economies and create large-scale jobs. And we do this through entrepreneurship, innovation, and skill development. There are three critical pillars at the foundation. One, create entrepreneurs, which will then create high potential job ventures, and then eventually high potential jobs. Uh, Bring out innovation to the masses. And we're also working in the skill development area, where how do we provide the 21st century skills to the existing workforce so that they are ready for the jobs that would be created over the next 10 years. And we're doing this across Asia, Africa, and Latin America in around 20 countries, and are scaling the impact working with thousands of beneficiaries, partners, government organizations, and stakeholders like you. I come from a vertical called Wadhwani Entrepreneur, where we work with very early stage to growth stage startups. Right from idea to IPO, there is an entire continuum. And at the idea stage, we have a different program which is called NEN Foundation. At advanced, if you have market validated concept, then we have advanced course. If you are at early traction, then we have something called Venture Fast Track idea stage program. And then if you are at growth stage, we have something called Venture Fast Track growth stage, and then support. And then the next vertical, that is Wadhwani Advantage, which works with micro, small, and medium scale enterprises. And then all together till IPO, we support. And this is all, so there is a structure program, and then there is all the 360-degree support that is required in terms of connecting with the mentors, connecting with the ecosystem, investors, customer connects, and all that happens through our technology platform. So that's a quick introduction on what Wadhwani Foundation is and what we do. And you can get more details on our website, and you can connect later with me to understand more about Wadhwani Foundation. Okay, coming back to our session today. Essentially, I would cover all these points, but more importantly, the session today is understanding how do we identify, how do we know who's our customer, and if we have an idea, what is very important in terms of creating a value for the right potential customer. So that is what we are going to discuss today. We're going to understand few concepts. We are going to understand few tools, and the objective here is to give you a overall glance through on this entire process of customer discovery. You'll not be able to do anything in a 45-minute session. It's a very long process, but there are various things that you should be knowing before you even get started on this customer discovery process. So that is what we are going to discuss today. And subsequently, whenever you have other master classes and other things, you can go more into the detail and understand about the tool and everything. So that's what we are going to do. I would like to start with how does a journey of an early stage startup look like from our perspective, from when we are working with so many of early stage startups. What are the critical stages that we look at while working with students, working with early stage founders like yours? So first thing first, very important, anything that you start, you should be passionate and committed about. So finding your flow, finding your what you love to do is very, very important if you are very particularly if you're working on your startup. So that's basically finding your flow, your ikigai, your sweet spot, whatever the various concepts that are being called. But more importantly, what do you want to do, and is there a way you can monetize and earn revenue out of that? So that's basically finding your flow. Once you have identified your interest, your passion, your skills that are capable of particularly related to the passion that you want to do, is where you identify a problem that is worth solving, related to your passion, related to your skill, your experience. Because entrepreneurship is a long journey, and you don't want to do something for 6 months or 8 months or a year and then say this is not something that I want to do. So identify a problem which is close to your heart as well as worth solving. And what do we mean by worth solving is something that we will look at today. And then the third, very important, once you have identified a problem worth solving, understanding the customer's jobs, pains, and gains. And there is a very, very good tool that is available to do this entire process, which is called Value Proposition Canvas. We will look at what does that mean. And post that, you develop your business model, you go out, you validate, you create your solution demo, test it out with the customers, and then you come back, iterate based on the feedback that you receive, and refine your MVP and launch your product for the market. So that's how we look at. Then there is a long journey ahead as well, but this is how we define an early stage startup journey. And what do an early stage startup has? So when we look at early stage founders or entrepreneurs, the students that really want to do something and change, uh, there is a lot of motivation. And very important, there is a decision that has been made that I am ready to go on this path. I am taking entrepreneurship as my career option, and I'm ready to invest at least 2 to 3 years, if not more, to even at least give it a shot and make it into a viable venture. So motivation, decision, uh, identifying your flow is what should be very important here. And skills, if you have it, great. If you don't have it, you should have uh, the hunger to develop those skills, and you will develop because that's related to your passion, your interest. You have an idea that you identify, you brainstorm, you with your team, you with your mentors, with your advisors, with the incubation center, and then you develop a prototype. So that's what is there in the early stage startup at this stage. Lot of action, lot of hustle, lot of early stage traction that comes here, and there is a lot of energy among the founders because uh, there is this hunger to change, there is this hunger to uh, uh, get things done. So lot of action, lot of hustle. And finally, you develop your team. Very important as an early stage founder, you can't do this alone. And more importantly, from an external investor point of view, what they look at early stage startup is a good team that is in place, the support that you've got, and you, if you have any mentors and advisors. And support today is so much available in terms of incubation centers, in terms of government grants, in terms of various other things that is available to a first time early stage startup. So that is what you should be having. Okay, some key ingredients for a successful startup, not all, but majority of them, when we look from a startup perspective, the definition perspective, from an investor's perspective, and from a incubators, accelerators perspective, these are the things that we're looking at. A big idea. Why I'm saying is a big idea because while this word looks very simple, an idea or a big idea, a lot of things has to happen before identifying a big idea. So we will see that today. It basically talks about, uh, is this a problem which is worth solving? Is it a big problem to solve? Who has this problem? Who are the customers who are looking, and you've identified that they have this problem or a pain, or they're looking for such an experience in their life. So that is about big idea. Very critical to identify. Once you have that in place, and very important second piece is competent team. You can't do this alone, and especially in today's fast evolving world, have to have a team, at least 2 to 3 members with complementing skills, so that you can develop what is required as a good plan. Brainstorm on the idea, brainstorm on the problem, work on the customer discovery, and create a good plan to kind of uh, figure out how you're going to solve this problem, if the one that you have identified. And then you have sufficient money to put this all together. Today there is no dearth of money that is sufficient. The initial start money that is required through incubators, accelerators, government grants, and competitions that are going on across, so that is enough to get you started. And if you see all these circles, that's only about, say, 20%, but majority of it happens to be the execution part of it. I've seen and I've worked with startups having big ideas, innovation. They've identified who could be their potential customers. they had a good team, good plan in place, good product, good service that came out, and enough money that we had supported with them. And but just because they could not go out from the lab and execute, the startup failed. So it's not about just idea or team or plan or funding, which most of you ask for. It's more about how do you execute it on the ground. And of course, a generous helping of luck, because if you see how pandemic came in and then things that were running traditionally changed overnight, and that gave birth to lot of technology startups today that are billion-dollar unicorns that have come out of the pandemic. So of course, environmental factors. Okay, before going into the topic of customer discovery, and I'm just trying to build a foundation here and the context. Lot of I work with a lot of early stage founders, students, and majority of the time when I'm interacting with them, I get those questions. I invented a great product. I'm working on a great idea. What next? Can you provide me funding? This is the best that can ever be. But there is nothing like this. There are no competitors. Nobody is solving this problem, and I just need some money to get this to the market. And once the customer sees the product, is going to buy it. I am sure, very, very 110% that once my product is out, customer is going to buy. And more importantly, when you're in a university or an academic forum, most of the time, why do I listen to a faculty who's kind of never done this? So these are the questions. These are relevant questions. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be asking them. Let me share you one story, and then I would let this you figure out whether should you be asking these questions now, or should you be asking these questions once you have more clarity. Okay, so story. Dean Kamen, a great inventor who invented a wheelchair that could climb steps. Wow. Then he announced a new project called Project X. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, many other people invested. The Project X was looked at a very, very phenomenal change that is going to happen in the humanity, and everyone was waiting for this product to come out. And they built big manufacturing plant and started manufacturing the product. Everything invested and everything done, and they thought this was going to change the humanity. Came the product called Segway. I'm sure every one of you have heard about it, and most of you would have rode a Segway in the malls or near the temples or some monumental places. A monumental failure. Over the last 20 years, only 30,000 units sold, and investor lost all their money, and the inventor lost his reputation. What went wrong? So there was a focus on invention rather than innovation. Very, very important. How do you take it to the market? Whether there is a need from the market, very important. Everyone thought this is going to change. Everyone will buy because this is something that everyone needs. And when they released the product into the market, they realized that there was no compelling need for anyone, right? What else? They were being a product, not a solution. Where should I park it? How do I charge it? Regulatory issues, training to the people who might need it once the product is being sold, and how to use it, and various other factors that led to the failure of this product, right? And there are many other examples like Google Glass. You would have heard about a satellite phone which was introduced by Motorola way back in 80s, and so and so forth. What's the important point here? They did not go to their customers, potential customers, and understood from them whether they want a product like this or not. They thought this is going to be a new product, new gadget, new invention into the market, and everyone is going to love it because everyone loves invention. Yes, but is there a need? Is this a problem worth solving? Are your customers or your potential customers sitting on their knees begging to you or people like you who exist saying, hey, please solve this problem for us? If that is a problem that you can identify, you have a worth solving problem, giving your time, effort, money into and creating into a high potential venture. And believe me, this saying that customer is God holds true forever, because they are the one who's going to pay money out of their product, out of their pocket for your product. So is this a problem worth solving? And that's first eligibility criteria. And how do we do that? Simple framework. All you have to do is look from a target audience perspective. How do you assess whether this is a problem, this is the idea that you should be going forward? Few very simple questions that the customer, from a customer's perspective, they ask: what is the promise that you're making to them? What is the differentiation? Why should I take from you when I have 10 other alternatives? And what is the support that the team is going to give me? So this is from a startup perspective. When they look at your product, when they look at your idea, when they look at the company, this is something that is going in customers' mind. Like, what would be the price? What would be the effort? What would be the risk, right? So this is all from customer's perspective and not your assumptions, your hypothesis. What's in it for me? So when customer, and think yourself as a customer, when you buy a new product or when you see a new product or service in the market, what's in it for me? Well, why should I, what are you offering me? What's better? Well, there are n number of things, but what's better in your, and why should I trust you? Why should I believe you? Is it worth the price? Is it, what are my costs of making it useful? What do you have do I have to get a training? Do I have to change my entire habit and everything? So what is the effort required for me to use your product? And what might go wrong? So this is like, there is a tier, there is a tier 2 movie, tier 1 movie without any fancy star, and this is being released. Obviously I'm talking before pandemic, and you are available on a Sunday, you want to go to a movie, and or you're looking for time to pass and spend with your friends, family, and all. You think, let's look at this movie. What might go wrong? All If at all the movie is worth, all I will lose is say 250 rupees per ticket. But at least I'll spend 2 hours, 2.5 hours with my friends, family, having popcorns and fun and everything. So what is the risk that that can go wrong if I use this product? And that is what these many questions are going on, and there are many more to your target customer, uh, and they're not even looking at how good is the invention or what it is going to create a social impact and so on and so forth. First thing first, is it for me or this is not for me? And this particular framework is very important. You anything, anytime when you have to assess your idea, make sure that you are uh, able to answer all these questions from a customer's perspective. And that is where, if you see, the customer is in the center, there is no product, there is no invention, there is no entrepreneur here, there is no startup here. Customer is in the center. How do you discover this? Usually when students come and early stage founders come to us, what they've done is so we want to do this, we want to create this solution, and there are so many features that would be available on this product, and we are going to do this as well, and this as well, and this as well, and this. So there is a 1 mile wide features on the surface area, but they have never gone deep into the problem, into the things that are necessarily required. So 1 inch deep. But what essentially you should be doing is identify, narrow down the problem that is worth to be solved, identify which segment, which customer, which small part of the customer has this problem, and why do they have this problem, what are the things that you can understand to identify and go deep, 1 mile deep into that problem and with the customer. So pick up a narrow solution, a narrow problem, which is very critical from a customer's perspective. Go deep into that and then identify a solution and then expand your horizon. So that is 1 inch wide and 1 mile deep thing that you can use to look at your problem or your idea. Okay, now, so that was about why it is very important from a customer's perspective on understanding whether this is a problem worth solving. Let us now look at how do we identify or discover our customers and what are the things that we need to do uh, to understand who the customer is and what does he or she wants. Okay. So I want to start with something very basic, and I'm sure all of you know about this, but just want to kind of put this here in context. There is a difference between a customer and a consumer, right? And for example, if you're buying a baby food, uh, the consumer is baby, but the customer is parents. Similarly, for your school, for your university, if you're paying it yourself, you're the consumer and the customer. But if your parents are paying for you, then who is the customer? Who is the consumer? I'm sure you now knows, right? So consumer, one who consumes the product and service, or customer, one who buys. Many of the time it could be one and all. Consumer and customer could be the one person itself. Other places, it could be two different entities, and you have to look at both the entities. One who's going to be the end beneficiary, that is the consumer, and one who's going to pay you money for that. So very important to keep this in. So once you have identified who are my consumers, who are my customers, the very second important is, so I've identified a problem that I think is worth solving. There is a pain, there is a problem with the customer. Uh, there are things that customer is currently not able to satisfied from the current alternatives that are available. So I figured that out through my opportunity discovery or identifying the problem. I've also discovered whether this is something which can be taken up. But is it a problem which is like for the masses, or is this could be a big problem to solve? You don't want to do this for as segue only for 10, 20, 30,000 pieces over 20 years, right? You want to create it into a highly scalable model uh, which help you generate more wealth as well as create a lot of other benefits when you actually create a startup. So second very important thing that the investors look for is how big is this pie, how big is the market that is totally available for this problem. So then it becomes a problem worth solving, giving all your time, effort, and you want to do something which is not for 6 months but 5 to 6 years at least, to make it into a good enterprise. So first thing first, identify total available market. Uh, how many people would need that product? How large is this market? And if they all bought it, and then how many units would that be? And these you can do through industry research, reports, government data that is available, a lot of secondary research that you can do to identify total available market. And with good references, there are many reports that are available from various associations. Once you have identified, so for example, my total available market is say $100 billion. Now, what I will do is, of course, I can't have the $100 billion. That's going to be the best case scenario, which usually doesn't happen in a startup. I will take up the very important second piece, which is what is the market that is available that I can serve to. So of course I can't reach to the entire market every time. So what is the market that is serviceable? How many people can use that product, have money to buy the product, uh, and how many units would that be? So how many people, how much money or amount, and then how much units you would have to create to get into that or to serve that market. And this you will do, this you can only do by talking to potential customers, whether they have the need, whether they have the money to buy, and how. And then if you do a sample survey, talk to potential customers, and then you figure out where else these customers could be, and which geographies, which places, which age group, and so on and so forth. So that's your served available market. And then you start with something called target market, which is a sub-segment of your serviceable available market. And here is where you do your 1 year, 2 year strategy. Let me start with these small segment. Let me serve them, get the feedback, iterate on my product, my service, and on my idea, and then I slowly I go to the other circles and spend outside the circle. And this is something that you do through segmentation, and very important in identifying and discovering your customer. One, whether it is a problem worth solving. So that is something that you speak to your customer, observe them, understand whether they need this uh, product, need this solution, do they really have a pain point? And then once you have identified, then you segment your customer in various parts. So what is segmentation? So you have this target market. There could be 3-4 types of segments. So they could be spread across geographies. They could be spread across demographies. They could be different, spread across using benefits, or they could be spread across online and offline. So channels, basically, for example. So so when you segment, then you divide your target market using any of these groups. So maybe you would say that I'm based out of Ahmedabad. I will first figure out Ahmedabad as my market. I will look at audience of anything between 18 to 23 and male, and I have a product for them. And then I'll go and capture those segment, get the feedback, get this rolling, and then with that, then I will say, okay, now this segment is done. It's more or less I've covered Ahmedabad. Maybe so there are now. Then you want to expand, you can then go to Baroda, or you'll say now Ahmedabad is done. Let me go to a metro city, say Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore, and then figure out the same, whether the same 18 to 23 male audience want that product or not. Or you can do another thing. You say Ahmedabad, I've done with uh, 18 to 23 male. Let me now create a different offering for the same age group but females, and then that's how you kind of cater to a different customer set. So very important, your target market. How do you divide this into sub? And that is basically your niche. So very important. So when you say, when I'm focusing on Ahmedabad as a geography, 18 to 23 male candidates, that is your niche that I am going to start with. And then I find out who are my early adopters. So early adopters would be my friends, family, and friends of family, and so on and so forth. So that is my early adopters. I will start with those first 50, 100, 200, and 500, and then I go to external when I have consumed all my circle and influencers around me. So very important couple of topics that I've talked about here is when you, so how do you segment is basically on different groups like geography, demography, behavioral benefits or channels. And then once you segment, then you go and see and narrow it down more, which is called your niche. When I say Ahmedabad 18 to 23 male, and then I also segregate this into based on channel. So I only want to reach out to those who use internet very often. So that's my channel. So I'm going to reach out through them through online ways, through WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, or my website or mobile app. So I've narrowed down this, and that is my niche. And then I of the niche, I say so many of my friends, so many of my family, so many of my classmates, so many of my uh, colleagues in the university. So those are my early adopters, right? So figure out how to narrow down and then find out your early adopters and niche for your product, for your service. Start with them, satisfy them, take their feedback, take their testimonials, and then build on that and get to your larger target market. And you can primarily divide your segments into 4 parts. One is called user, the consumer, the beneficiary of your product, beneficiary of your idea. This could be a primary customer, this could be a secondary customer, right? The second is someone who gives you data. So they may not be the user, they may not be the payer or give you money, but they could give you a lot of data. So you can divide your customer segment into data. Third is the one very simple who pays you money. So this is direct, who is going to pay me money. That is my and then fourth customer segment, which may not give you money, which may not be your direct user, but they influences the other three. They influences the users, they influences the payer. So who are my influencers? Are they play a critical role, then they come into primary, or they play a secondary role, they come into the second column. So identify your customer, break them down, narrow them down, put them into these buckets, and you will have a lot more clarity on, okay, this is my user, this is not going to pay me money, but here is my payer, let me reach out to them, let me influence the user through various means and get the money from the payer, or let me get the users to use my product and get the data from various sources, and let me work and create a revenue channel using that data. That's something what Cred is doing. A recent startup that you might have heard is a you see them on various ad channels also, and then now they were the official partners of the IPL as well, the Cred company that I'm talking about, which has captured the top 2 to 5% of the market, the credit card holders in India, and they're just focusing on that market of 2 to 5%. That is what they figured out their niche. They figured out the problem. The credit, that is basically people using credit cards forget to pay bills on time, and they also figured out they kind of gave this as a example that the highest interest that you pay is on the credit card if you lose the last date to pay your bills. So around 30% of the interest that you pay if you lose your payment date. So they figured out, they kind of got this audience, and they say when you're paying your credit card bill, you don't get any benefits. It's the money that is going just like that. We will give you cashback, and with that cashback, you can do a lot of things. You can play, you can buy, and do a lot of fun activities. So that's the user that they've identified. They're bringing all the credit card holders onto one platform, and they're using that data, our spending methodology, where are we spending, and give us those kind of customized product and services and the likes of things. So basically using that data, they're kind of giving us products and services that will help us do purchases on CRED platform. So that's how you kind of figure out who is going to be my customer segment. Is it primary? Is it secondary? And how do I divide them into all these 4 buckets so that I am very clear which one to reach out first and what each of these segment play a role in my entire venture and startup. Okay, and we are towards the last point, which is once you have identified who's going to be my consumer and my customer, once I've identified how big is the market, once I've identified is it a problem worth solving, I go and identify what is the value that I can give to them. And this is this journey that is called from pain to value. How do you take the pain of the customer, of your potential customer, and give them the value which solves their pain point, which solves their problem. And you do this through something called as providing a value proposition, which basically is nothing but your product and service uh, provides the benefits to the potential customer. And believe me, all the tools that are there today starts with customer. So very important to understand, discover who exactly want this product, this service. And that is basically your the benefits that you are going to provide to that potential segment is your value proposition. There is a very good tool that is available which is called value proposition canvas. We will see that. And this is just a fact that 72% of new products and service innovations fail to deliver on expectation because all these new products and services, they've never spoken to their potential customer. And that's the hardest part. You have built a product, you have built a service, you have built a prototype, you have created something which nobody wants. And that is the worst thing that can happen to an entrepreneur, at least at the early stage. And that is what we are seeing. One of the major failure reason of startups across. And I'll just jump from this. So I'll just come to the value proposition canvas. It's a very, very simple tool. It starts with customer segment. Who is my customer and what does he want? What is the job that he wants me to do for him? What are his pains? Why is he wants that job to get done from me? What are the problems that he's facing currently? And what does he want? How does he want to solve that problem? So you start with analyzing your customer, and which is basically creating a customer profile or your customer persona, that is what we call as. And then you go to your drawing board and you see, okay, these are the 5-7 pains that customer has given us, but let me look at the topmost pain and relieve that pain. So that is basically your pain reliever. And these are the gains that customers are looking, but I can't give all the gain. So let me figure out 1 or 2 gain that I can give to the customer so that customer is very happy. So that is your gain creator, and there comes your product, your service, right, for that particular customer segment. Because you have created looking at their pains and gains, there are high chances that they will take your product, take your service, and that's your value proposition. This is something which is a day-long workshop that can be done on value proposition. It's a long exercise where you have to actually go out on the ground, understand your potential customer, and a very important tool to figure out your value proposition. And most startups fail from a lack of customers than from a failure of product development. It's not about how good I am in making a technology product. Technology is just a tool. And in today's world, you can have all the technology that you want, but if you don't have a customer that is ready to take that technology, that's a failure from understanding or having a lack of customers than uh, making a product that is basically using all the latest technology, AR, VR, AI, ML. I keep hearing that we are using all those technologies, but we don't know who needs that. But we really know how we can make that. But the idea is to focus on who part and then go on what and how part. And towards the end, so entrepreneurial journey is uh, let me be very honest, it's very challenging. uh, it's not easy. There are n number of things that you have to look at, and more importantly, who the customer is, where would be they, what would they buy, would they willing to pay, and then how would you reach out to them? Very important. And then comes your all other like manpower, organization, and money and other things that you would need to get into the entrepreneurial journey. And getting there is very hard. Uh, if you have seen any of the successful entrepreneurs, if you go into their journey, you will realize there is a lot of work that has gone in where they are today. And uh, and you need to be better in most of the areas, but excellent in some areas. Identify your core skill, your passion, build on that, and identify people who, if you don't have the other skills, then identify people in your team who have the other skills that you may not need to have, and then work as a team. And this is something that I usually uh, tell to my startups that I coach, that I mentor. uh, and this is something that is taken uh, from our mythology, Devdutt Patnaik. Uh, he says, all of you know who's this guy. This is Indra, the king of heaven, king of gods, has everything with him that a king would require, or a person would require in a life. I don't want to go into the details. You can understand. But even after having everything with him, he's always behind Lakshmi. He's always want to have more of Lakshmi and everything. So he's always running behind Lakshmi. And whereas Lakshmi is always behind Vishnu, because Vishnu is the creator. He's always in creating and executing things and creating value, right? And that's what the message that I want to give. Create your Raniti, keep executing the plan, keep creating value for the society, and funding or the money will follow automatically to you. So don't run behind funding, don't run behind money, don't run that I just need money. Create value, and it will follow. And you can have one important piece in the puzzle, which is very important, the role of a mentor. Today, we are seeing a lot of startups that they want to do it themselves, everything very good, but you can have a helping hand of mentor. And this again, if you have seen Mahabharata, whatever all said and done, Vishnu was a great mentor to Arjuna. Uh, and very importantly, if you see, Vishnu had never, or Krishna had never fought the battle. He had led Arjuna to fought the battle, gave the guidance, gave the relevant uh, uh, things that are necessary to fight the battle. And that is what a mentor will do. A mentor will not fight battle for you, or a coach or a guru. They will give you the right guidance, and they can become your sounding board. But the onus is on you. The onus is on you to execute. Onus is on you to fight the battle and win the battle. Right. So that's what the role of an incubator as well. The mentors that are part of the incubator as well. And with this, welcome to the world of entrepreneurs. It's a crazy journey. It's a crazy ride. It's like riding a lion. Uh, it's so overwhelming to ride a lion. Okay, and then at the same time, it's also fearing if you fall down, lion will eat you up. But uh, it's a altogether different feeling of riding a lion. So that's the world of entrepreneurs. And thank you. I'm open to questions, and If you want to connect, you can drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. And over to you, Pradyum.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a beautiful explanation of the whole process of customer discovery. We do have some questions for you. The first question is from Mr. Amit Kumar, who says, in order to find out our potential customers, data is required. So I just want to ask, from where can we collect the data?
To do the customer survey.
Yes, sir.
Okay, where can I read the? Okay, in the chat.
Yeah.
In order to find out potential customer, data is required. Okay, so as I said, if first thing first, you start with your overall TAM, total addressable market. That data is available through various research that are done by, say, FICCI or BCG, all the four big four companies. That a lot of government data is now also available. So that is first thing first to get started. You get your industry insights, you get your what is going to happen in the next 5 years. Get those data from very good relevant sources that are available, and then figure out, okay, now this is my industry, this is my total addressable market, this is what industry segments are saying, and over the next 5 years, 10 years, this is how the industry is going to work. Now I will take up what's happening, say, for this is for India, what's happening in Gujarat, right? And I'll take that figure and see if there are more reports that are available. What is happening in Gujarat? How is the current scenario of that potential target segment? And then if that is what's happening in Ahmedabad, and final piece is very important, where you have to go to some of these potential customers, talk to them, understand, observe, see how things are happening currently, and how they are using the current solutions, and where do you see the problem. And
Okay.
that is how you identify the potential customers.
Thank
Hope
you,
that
sir. Thank
answers
you.
your question.
Yeah, it does explain it well. But carrying on from the point of data, in customer segmentation, you had mentioned one of the segments as a data user, in which there's a particular set of users from which we get data. How is that different from a user, beneficiary, or a payer, influencer? Like, I just want to understand if you could just illustrate with some examples who a data user would be.
Okay, so for example, when we discuss for example, Amazon, now the users are the ones. So there are users and the payers, both are same on Amazon, for example, right? You buy product, and you can also be the seller. So I'm not including the seller part because that's a different segment for Amazon. It's a marketplace. But if you look at the customer's perspective, you and me are the users, you and me are also the buyers. And sometimes you buy it for your parents or something else, but that's a different story. Now, second, very important, whatever you are buying, Amazon over the history is able to collect data, right? That these are your preferences, and if you see, you get, okay, you have researched these in the past, and you get your preferences and suggested items that you might be interested. Same happens when you do Big Basket or other things, all your grocery. All they're doing is they're looking at your behavioral pattern, your purchasing pattern, what are things you've bought, and then suggesting you. So that they're using that data to give you, and they're using data from similar kind of. So Pradyumna here has bought, say, 5 things. I here has bought 5 things. So this age group, this kind of people are buying this kind of data, and they kind of do that analysis, and that is basically. Sometimes it is from the backend, from the same user, same. Sometimes it is like in the case of in uh, the credit card holders that are paying through cred is the data pay is the data kind of providing them data to give them more insights on how can I provide the differentiated product to this class. They don't want to buy any chocolate or any other apparel, they want to buy high-end products and services. So here are things that I am providing to you based on your spending nature, based on your how much you are paying through your credit cards. So that is how they use data in terms of their. So that's a critical segment that they are focusing on.
Thank you, sir, for explaining that. Our next question is from Mr. Parth Vagasia, who's asking, can we use Google Form or things like that to get customer reviews for the services that we provide?
Absolutely. So primarily you can do that. So if you are, say for example, if you are in a software or you're making an app, uh, data of 10, 15, 20 would not make sense. You need to understand how people in different geographies, for example, Ahmedabad is behaving, how metro cities like Mumbai, Bangalore behaves. So you float that data over Google or on LinkedIn or any other WhatsApp messages, collect that data. Once you have that data, analyze, and then uh, the part where you have to go and speak to your potential customer cannot be neglected, cannot be omitted or eliminated. That has to happen. So use whatever data, primary, secondary, desktop research, market research, surveys, anything. Ultimately analyze, handpick few, go to them, understand why do you have this problem, when do you have this problem, what is the problem, and why are you not satisfied with the current products? Why are you not satisfied with the alternatives that are already existing? Why do you need something new, if at all they need? And there could be sometimes a latent need where they don't know whether they need, and that is something called as unscratched need, uh, which nobody has scratched so far. For example, that happened in the case of iPhone, for example, iPods, or in case of other services where there was no need, but they were struggling with the existing uh, products and the things that were there. So you can do whatever you want, but ultimately going, observing will only kind of give you the real insight from a customer's perspective.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, what is the difference in value proposition canvas and a business model canvas?
Wow, very important. Okay, so there is no difference. Value proposition canvas has been culled out from business model canvas. Uh, Value proposition canvas is a sequential step to the business model canvas or a lean canvas. A lot of people today are using lean methodology, and lean canvas is the latest trend. But both of business model canvas or lean canvas, everything, value proposition is the first step where uh, you start with customer segment and you try to create a value proposition for that particular customer segment, and then you go out and build the rest of the blocks on a business model. So you can't start with key resources, key activities, key partners, or how will I earn revenue unless I figured out customer segment and what is the value that they need. And once I figured out, then I go and create my channels. How will I reach out to them? And this is how I earn revenue. So value proposition is a step towards business model, building the business model, very critical step. And before creating a value proposition, you can't create a business model.
Okay, thank you. Building up on that, could you like just elaborate on a difference, say a USP, unique selling point, versus a unique value proposition, a UVP? Is there any difference between those two also?
No, there is no difference. So more or less these are same things. I definition wise, I wouldn't want to go into the details, but essentially what each of them. So what is a unique selling point and what is a unique value proposition is basically the same customer segment. There are 10 alternatives available for them. What differentiate your product and service? So that is basically your USP or UVP or whatever. So differentiated solution that you're creating. It could be a difference in the price or very low price. It could be a added features or added things that were missing in the existing product, or this could be altogether new way of looking at the things which the existing players were not at all looking at, right? And they were not catering to that market. You come out with a product and service which is similar, but you're catering to an altogether new segment. And that's basically your unique value proposition or unique seller.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for really explaining it very clearly about the whole customer process. We do not have any further questions as of now. With that, I think we can wrap up today's session. I would once again like to thank you on behalf of Sastra for giving your valuable time and insights. And I think all of us today who have attended this session have gained a lot of insights into the whole journey of an early stage startup. With that, I'll end today's session. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you very much, and I wish all the participants here very best. And if there are any questions later, if you feel, you can always reach out to me, or you can reach out to Pradyumna and he can direct it to me. And happy to help, happy to support young entrepreneurs. And thank you very much, Sastra, for giving me this opportunity to speak today. And wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.